Welcome to Mobile Application Tutorials. My name's Nigel. Okay, so we're going to be doing a tutorial about how to create a basic Hello World application. What we're going to just demonstrate here is how to use the Flutter widgets and write code in the Dart programming language. Okay, in the background here we've got the Flutter Hello World application. This is a tutorial on my site. There will be a link in the description as well as a YouTube card for this. Now I've put a prerequisite for this, and it's basically I do recommend that you are familiar with a object-oriented programming language, and the main reason for that is using Flutter you're basically going to be working off widgets, which are classes, so it's good to be familiar with that. And I've put an example of a few languages, but that's just to name a few. I will be trying to make these tutorials as simple as possible, but I won't be covering object-oriented programming language concepts. Okay, and so we put a brief introduction of what we're going to be doing here. Here's the episodes of what I intend to work through this mini series of while I do skill acquisition on learning the Flutter and Dart programming language. And you will be able to pull down the code to start this tutorial as well as complete code from Git as well. And I've just put a basic description of the code we're going to be going through here. Just to use as a reference. Some of you might prefer just to follow this instead of the tutorial. This is a lot quicker sometimes when you follow documentation. Anyway, so we will make a start. So we'll go to our Flutter project, and this is the default project that you will get when you first create a Flutter application. It lives under the lib main.dart, and you get all this code here. And what we're going to do is just remove all this code. We want to start from scratch. Okay, so the first thing I want to do here is just to go to the documentation. I'm going to click on this Flutter.io widgets. Here's the URL for that, and it gives you a widget catalog here. And what we're going to be doing is working off the material components. So I'm going to select visit, and here it is. Here's a collection of these are all widgets, and what we're going to do is basically import the material app widget. This is a convenience widget for adding all of these into our collection basically. So we'll go to our AndroidStudio. So I need to import that. So if we type import, and I'm just going to click material.dart. Okay, so we've got that, and next thing I want to do is to create a class. And we've got basically Flutter provides us with two main types of widgets: stateless or stateful. And stateful means it's mutable, means the properties underneath can be changed. Stateless means the properties underneath cannot be changed. So for the Hello World, we don't need to change anything. We're just displaying some text. So we're going to use the stateless widget. So we need to create a class for that. So use the class keyword, and then I'll just call this Hello World app. And you need the extends keyword to create a subclass. And now we're going to call the stateless widget here, and close that with some curly braces. Okay, and now we do need to implement a method here. I'm on a Mac, so I can press Alt Enter and create the missing override. Okay, and so what this build's going to do here is just to add the stateless widget to our UI. Okay, now to do, we need to return our widget basically. So what we're going to do is create a material. You select this one here, material app, and select enter. And let's go to our material app. And it's this widget here. So let's select the documentation. So I'm going to use the documentation to help support me making this tutorial. And it gives a basic description of what we're going to be doing here. one of the important things is the home property. It's like the default root of where we want to point our UI to. And I also want to look for, so we've got the home widget here. I am going to use that, but I want to scroll on down here quickly. And I also want to specify a title, which is a one-line description used to identify the app to the user. So we use a title, and then we'll go across and set up the home widget. Okay, so we'll go back into our AndroidStudio. So we will add a title here, and I'm just going to use a single quotation marks, and we can just put welcome to Hello World app, something to that effect. Now if we go back to our material app class, and we need a home property as well, so we'll add that. Okay, and for the home property, I'm going to specify another widget here. And this is a scaffold widget, and this is what we use to enable our UI layout. So let's go to scaffold widget in the documentation here. I'll just go back once. So here's the scaffold widget here. So if we open up the scaffold widget, and again, it's part of the material class, and it basically supports all these widgets here. It can support an app button. I just want to go down there, and so we will use the app bar, which would be like a top toolbar at the top of the application, if you're familiar with Android applications. And we will use the body, which is the primary content of the scaffold as well. Okay, so we'll go there. So inside our scaffold, I will add a app bar. And that's to do that, we'll create that widget. So it's new app bar. And so in the new app bar, it's just going to have a title. We will create a text widget. And inside the text widget, we'll just specify the name of the world application. Hello World app. And that's all we're going to do with app bar at this stage. So underneath the app bar, still within the scaffold widget, we specify the body. And in here, we specify another widget. And this is going to be text, and we can use what's called the center widget for that. So let's go back into that, and I'm just going to do a search for center. Let's find out about this center class here. So we'll select that. So here's the center class here, and it just centers, it's a widget that centers children from inside it. And I just want to see which property we will call, and it will be a child property. Okay, so we'll go back into here. So we'll select child. And again, I'm just going to put a text widget inside there, and we can just go hello world. Okay, and we are getting a slight error. If I press F2, we do need a semicolon to complete that. Okay, that's the completion of the class, but nothing's going to actually happen when we attempt to run this, because we haven't specified an entry point to run code on this application. To do that, we will create a main function, and this is the entry point. I just want to do this in a single line, so you can actually specify define functions in a single line by using this fat or flat arrow. Fat arrow, I believe. So we can use this fat arrow just to specify a function of a single line in Dart programming language, and then from here we just specify the run app function, and then we pass in an instance of our Hello World application. So very similar to Java. To create a new instance, you call new Hello World app, and we do need a semicolon on the end of that. Okay, so this is the entry point. The main function gets called when you first start up a Flutter application. And we call run app. And what run app will do is it will inflate this widget, then attach it to our UI. Okay, and I believe that's all we need to do for our Hello World application. So what I'm going to do is drag across here the emulator, and then we'll just click run. The application is now running. You can see Hello World being displayed there, so that's fine. So now what I want to do is just demonstrate what they call hot swapping. So let's go back into our text here inside our scaffold and change Hello World to Hello Flutter, or whatever you want to call it. And then it's a matter I just press save there, just Command S on a Mac, and I'll just highlight this. It's automatically initializing a hot reload there, and as you can see, the text here has changed to Hello Flutter. And we can do the same thing here. If we want to change the actual toolbar name here, we can go, I'll just keep it simple and consistent, change world to Hello Flutter, and I'm just going to press save, and I can see again down here it's performing a hot reload, and as you can see, Hello Flutter app has changed that. So that's demonstration of the hot swapping as well. So when you're making code changes, you can quickly view those code changes as well, which is important in your development productivity. Okay, so I will call a halt to this tutorial. That's the Hello World application completed. What we demonstrated is we created our first widget, which is the stateless widget, which means the properties inside do not change. And then we demonstrated the material app widget, the scaffold widget for laying out the items in your UI. And we created an app bar, which is supported by the scaffolding at the top. And we also just used a text widget there to display some text, and we used the center widget just to control where we wanted that widget to display in our screen. Anyway, and finally we did have to set up the main entry point here as well, and specifying that is just telling the Flutter this is where we want the code first to run when the application first starts. We called the run app function, which basically inflates our widget and attaches it to the display. And you can notice that a lot of this code here, a lot of the syntax of the Dart programming language is very similar to Java as well, such as when you create an instance of a class by using the new keyword, and such as when you create a subclass using the extends keyword. Anyway, so that completes this simple quick Flutter tutorial. If you do want to get notified of these Flutter tutorials that I'm working on, don't forget to click on that subscribe button and the little bell icon next to it. And you also get notified of Android and Kotlin tutorials that I work on as well. Anyway, thank you for taking the time for watching this one. Bye for now.